Let me speak to you straight, like we're sitting face to face. No filters, no sugarcoating, just the raw truth most men never hear and even fewer ever accept. If she starts doing these things, the subtle ones, the quiet ones, trust me, you're living rent-free in her head far more than you realize. I'm not talking about obvious stuff like daily texts or public likes. No, I'm talking about the tiny, almost invisible signals she drops without even knowing it. Signals that prove you occupy a special corner of her mind, a place most men will never reach, no matter how hard they try. Before you brush this off with, yeah, but that could mean anything, listen close. Female psychology is a territory few men dare to explore deeply, and make no mistake, this isn't about manipulation or dirty games. This is about finally understanding how a woman's attention and interest actually work behind the scenes. Because here's the brutal, uncomfortable truth nobody tells you. She thinks about you more than you imagine, even when she says no, even when she acts like you're just background noise. And once you learn to spot these hidden signs, you gain an advantage, a massive, unfair advantage that leaves most men completely blindsided without them ever knowing why. Think about it. Has a woman ever laughed at your dumb jokes even when they weren't that funny? Has she ever sent you random messages at odd hours for no real reason? That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's pure psychology in motion. Proof that your mental presence is already anchored somewhere deep inside her world. And here's what's controversial and hard to swallow. Most men never grasp this. They stay stuck chasing obvious signals while completely missing the real game. While they're busy trying to impress her with grand gestures, you could be quietly decoding something infinitely more powerful. How to know you've already claimed space in her mind, without her ever saying it out loud. Today, I'm going to show you exactly which signs to watch for, how to interpret them correctly, and what to do the moment you realize, yes, you're already inside her head more than she wants to admit. This isn't fluffy theory or recycled internet advice. This is applied female psychology, built for men who are ready to understand the real behavior behind a woman's actions. If you're ready to stop being a confused spectator and start seeing what's actually happening in the female mind, stay right here, because what you're about to learn, you won't hear anywhere else. The subtle signs that scream you're already on her mind. Listen up. Before you dismiss this as just another theory or some made-up game stuff guys post online, pay attention, because the truth is, women drop these signs constantly. If you don't train yourself to see them, you'll miss something most men don't even know exists. You're already in her head. Yes, right now. And no, I'm not talking about obvious things like texting every day or direct date invites. I'm talking about gestures so subtle they slip right past most guys, but they reveal more than any direct word ever could. First, let's talk about the look. Have you ever caught her staring at you? Then she quickly looks away the second your eyes meet. That's classic. What most men completely miss is that women don't look by accident. That quick glance, that split-second eye contact, is proof your presence is taking up real estate in her mind. It's involuntary. Even if she says you're just a friend or acts indifferent, her brain can't help but lock onto you. Another one you can't ignore, the smile. But not any smile. Those spontaneous, unguarded ones that slip out when you're talking, or even when you're just nearby. Even if what you said wasn't hilarious. Most men write this off as politeness or friendliness. Wrong. Those smiles are emotional reactions. When she smiles like that, even for a second, your presence is leaving a mark on her mind. Pay close attention to how she replies to your messages too. I'm not talking about speed. I'm talking about intention. If she keeps the conversation going, asks you questions, remembers tiny details you mentioned weeks ago, that's not random. It means your name pops into her head even when you're not around. It means you're recurring in her thoughts. Many men never notice this. They wonder why other guys seem to get things they can't see. She's testing you unconsciously, measuring your reactions, and you didn't even know the test was happening. Finally, never underestimate the small physical cues. Playing with her hair when she's near you, leaning in slightly when you speak, closing the physical gap just a little when there's plenty of room to stay distant. These look natural, but female body language is almost never neutral. Every micro gesture can signal that your energy draws her, that your presence sparks curiosity, that you're mattering more than she wants to admit. The key here is learning to spot and connect these signs. Because while other men waste time hunting for loud, obvious proof of interest, you can quietly realize you're already inside her mind, without her ever saying it directly. And trust me, once you master that skill, everything changes. Decoding her body language, what her body is really screaming. Her body language speaks louder than her words ever will. Let me tell you something few men truly understand. Women rarely say exactly what they feel. Yes, you read that right. While you're focused on her words, you often miss the most critical information: her body. Because female body language reveals more truth than any text, call, or declaration ever could. And if you learn to read it correctly, you'll discover you're far more present in her mind than even she realizes. For example, watch how she positions herself when you're close. If her shoulders or feet are angled toward you, even while she's talking to other people, that's not random. It's an unconscious signal that your presence pulls her attention, even if her mouth says otherwise. Most men see this and ignore it, thinking it's just manners or coincidence. Wrong. Your influence is already inside her mental space, and her body is showing it without words. Another huge one: hand and hair movements. Does she touch her hair when she talks to you? Play with an object nearby? That's not just nerves. It's often a subconscious way of expressing attraction or interest, even if she doesn't realize she's doing it. Every micro gesture is like coded proof. Yes, you're in my head. Facial expressions matter too. Do her eyes light up or widen when you speak? Does she raise her eyebrows or smile the second she sees you? That's not just being nice. Her face is leaking genuine emotion towards you, even if the conversation stays casual. Men who can't read these cues miss when they're actually creating real emotional impact. Even physical distance counts. If she closes the gap slightly when she's near you, even when there's plenty of space to stay apart, that's a clear sign your company feels magnetic or intriguing to her. And here's the controversial part. Most men spend years ignoring these subtle signals, while others pick up on tiny details that completely shift the dynamic without saying a single word. The key is observation, interpretation, and context. It's not just watching how she moves, it's understanding why she moves that way and how she responds to your energy. When you start decoding her code, you realize something powerful. Being in her mind doesn't require her to say it out loud, because her body is already screaming it. If you master this language, you gain a massive edge over every man who relies only on what he hears. You'll start understanding real female psychology in action. No tricks, no complicated theories, just clear observation and confident response. How to know she's thinking about you even when she's not talking to you. Let me be brutally direct. A lot of men live in the delusion that if she's not texting constantly, she's not interested. That's a massive mistake. The truth is she can be thinking about you nonstop, even when it feels like you're barely on her radar. And if you don't learn to spot these signs, you'll never realize what's really happening inside her head. There are moments when you simply exist in her thoughts. No message needed, no call, no constant interaction. She might remember you out of nowhere. She might imagine how you'd react to something. She might think of you when she goes through situations that remind her of you. This kind of attention is silent, invisible to most men, but incredibly powerful. It places you in a special mental compartment, one most guys will never reach. The important thing here is that it doesn't always show through external actions. She doesn't have to text you. She doesn't have to approach you constantly. She doesn't have to tell you she's thinking about you. That can feel confusing because most men demand clear, visible, immediate proof. But the female mind works differently. Often it processes and acts on interest internally. And if you learn to understand that, you'll start noticing patterns other men miss completely. Another aspect you need to grasp: this doesn't always mean she's ready to act on what she feels. Sometimes she's simply processing her interest, evaluating the connection, weighing her emotions against everything else in her life. From the outside, it can look like indifference, but inside her mind, you're taking up serious space. This mental attention is so real, it influences her decisions, her mood, the way she behaves, even when she's with other people. Here's the controversial part. Many men ignore this entirely because they believe if there's no immediate action, there's no real interest. That's a grave error. Being in someone's head doesn't always mean physical contact or verbal interaction. It can be something far deeper and more subtle, yet just as powerful. And recognizing it gives you an edge. It lets you understand she has constant thoughts about you, that your presence matters, that even when she seems distant, you're still on her mental radar. This completely changes how you interpret her behavior. You realize her silence isn't indifference, her reserve isn't disinterest. Her selective attention isn't random. Everything teaches you something most men never learn. Female psychology doesn't always communicate directly, but these internal signals are crystal clear if you know how to see them. In the end, realizing she's thinking about you even when she's not talking isn't just intuition, it's observation, attention to the subtleties of the female mind. When you catch it, you start noticing patterns, feeling the consistency of her interest, recognizing that your impact goes way beyond the surface. And the most powerful part, while other men hunt for obvious signs, you already know her thoughts about you are real, constant, and meaningful. If you master this perception, your entire perspective on interactions with women shifts. You no longer depend on immediate actions or explicit words. You understand the female mind can work in silence, and you're already part of that mental activity. Believe me, that's something most men never figure out, and that's exactly why they stay on the outside looking in, the mental game she plays without even realizing it. Now we're getting to something most men overlook completely, the mental games she runs, often without even knowing she's doing it. And here's a dose of reality you might not want to hear. A lot of men get completely trapped by these dynamics. They react emotionally, get confused, think something's wrong with her, or worse, that she's impossible to understand. The truth is different. The female mind has its own rhythm, its own logic. And if you don't get it, you stay stuck on the outside. First, let me be direct. Most men wait for clear, immediate signals and get frustrated when they don't show up. That's a common mistake that wastes time and energy. It's not that she's deliberately playing with you. Most of the time, she's not even aware of what she's doing. Her mind is constantly evaluating situations, interpreting emotions, measuring interest and reactions. And if you're not alert, you get caught in wrong interpretations and useless assumptions. This is where most men fail. They confuse uncertainty with rejection, distance with indifference, silence with disinterest. And that's what I want you to understand. Not everything is what it appears. She might be testing your attention level, your patience, your ability to stay calm and in control, all unconsciously. These mental games aren't traps. They're signs you matter enough to be evaluated on a deeper level. While other men panic, you have the chance to stand out by observing clearly and understanding the pattern behind her actions. Now, a little tough love. If you keep reacting impulsively, showing insecurity, overanalyzing every detail, you're making it harder on yourself. Many men never realize the real advantage lies in staying calm, not showing that it affects you, and understanding that female psychology is subtle but incredibly powerful. Waking up to this means stopping the constant search for validation and starting to read what's really happening behind her gestures, silences, and movements. My advice here is simple but crucial. Observe, analyze, stay aware, but don't get emotionally pulled in. Learn to differentiate real interest signals from casual interaction. Understand that she can think about you, test you unconsciously, and evaluate your behavior, all without you noticing. And while other men lose their minds trying to decode every move, you can keep the advantage by staying calm and understanding the real game. Your presence matters more than what she says, but you need to be smart enough to recognize it and respond with control. In the end, understanding these mental games isn't about manipulation or control. It's about waking up, stopping blind reactions to every move, seeing female psychology clearly, accepting that her mind operates in ways that aren't always visible, and using that understanding to interact with intelligence and confidence. Waking up to this lets you stand out from the majority of men who live confused, anxious, and trapped in false interpretations. Remember, while they're wasting time questioning every gesture, you can recognize that her attention toward you is real, and that her mind is constantly evaluating you, and that, when you truly get it, changes everything about how you see interactions with women and how you act in response. What to do when you know you're in her head? Don't do this. Now we arrive at the critical part. If you've paid attention to everything so far, you already know being in her head isn't something every woman allows easily, and it often happens in subtle, silent ways. The question now is, what do you do with that knowledge? This is where most men blow it. They feel confident, or worse, act needy, and everything she was quietly building about you dissolves in seconds. First rule, breathe and stay calm. Yes, it sounds basic, but most men react impulsively the moment they realize she's thinking about them. They want to flood her with messages, overdo jokes, make big gestures to keep the attention. That kind of reaction shatters everything the silent attention and female psychology were building in your favor. The key is understanding that your value doesn't depend on her immediate approval. It depends on how you handle your presence in her mental and emotional world. Here's a controversial but real truth. Many men believe they have to overdo it to stay relevant in a woman's mind. That's a huge mistake. The truth is less is more. Being in her head is already your advantage. Acting desperate turns it into a reflection of anxiety and neediness. What you really need to do is maintain your life, your interests, your emotional control, while letting her mind do its work. The combination of subtle presence and strategic distance is insanely powerful, and most men never grasp it because they're chasing instant results. Another crucial piece: observe how she responds and adjust your approach without losing your center. That means you don't have to guess every thought, but you do need to read the signs and act intelligently. If she shows interest, don't overanalyze it. If she pulls back slightly, don't panic. The female mind evaluates consistency, calmness, security. Being aware of that puts you in a position where you're not just seen as interesting, you're seen as someone who holds value effortlessly. Also, when you know you're in her head, use it to build real emotional connection. This isn't about manipulating or playing games. It's about making your presence have a real positive impact. That means keeping conversations meaningful, showing authenticity, being consistent, without falling into the trap of trying too hard to please her. That's where smart men win the advantage. While others try to force attention, you become unforgettable simply through stability and security. Finally, a piece of advice most men ignore: respect her space and mental freedom. Being in her mind doesn't give you the right to control her, pressure her, or demand constant attention. Female psychology works best with balance. You acknowledge your position, act with confidence, and give her room to think and feel without feeling threatened. That doesn't just reinforce your presence in her mind, it makes you someone who inspires respect and authentic attraction, something anxious men never achieve. In the end, knowing you're in her head isn't a reason to relax completely or get anxious. It's a call to act intelligently, calmly, and securely. Your advantage lies in recognizing your impact, holding your value, and letting her mind work in your favor without needing overkill or drama. When you apply it correctly, your influence becomes real, lasting, and powerful. Final wake-up call: face the reality of the female mind. Before we wrap this up, I want to say something that will probably make a lot of men uncomfortable. And that's exactly the point. Most men never truly understand the female mind because they hunt for easy, fast, direct signs, and they completely miss what actually matters. That's a harsh reality, but it's the truth. While others wait for obvious answers, you can learn to see what they can't and use that understanding to connect on a real level. The controversy is simple. If you don't learn to read what's not being said, you'll always be one step behind, even when you think you're doing everything right. And that's where I want you to wake up and open your eyes. This isn't about complicated techniques or tricks to manipulate anyone. It's about understanding that your value, your calm, your emotional intelligence, that's what truly sets you apart. While many men waste time and energy chasing surface-level attention, you can observe, interpret, and respond in a way that not only makes you stand out, it makes you unforgettable in her mind. That's what changes everything. I want you to do something right now. Share your experience in the comments. Tell me what you've noticed, what confused you, how you think these signs show up in your life. I promise I'll read every single one and reply, because this isn't just another video. This is a real conversation about understanding women and mastering your presence in their minds. I want you to feel you're not alone in this process. And together, we can decode patterns most men never even notice. Remember, being in her head isn't an accident. It isn't luck. It depends on your attention, your interpretation, and your ability to stay grounded while she processes her interest in her own way. Most men never get this, and that's exactly where the difference lies. This opportunity isn't for everyone, only for those ready to wake up and face the truth without filters. So drop your stories, your questions below, and let's make this a real conversation. This isn't about games. It's about understanding, observing, and acting with intelligence. Because when you do, you don't just know you're in her mind. You know how to make it work powerfully in your favor.